Nobody saw this coming, not like this. A 19-year-old rookie just walked straight into the NBA Finals and started breaking playoff records like he has been doing this for a decade. Dylan Harper is not supposed to be here, not yet. Not at this level, not on this stage, not against the best competition the league has to offer. But the numbers don't lie, the highlights don't lie, and the basketball world is running out of ways to explain what this kid is doing. Now the players around the league are speaking up. Veterans, all-stars, former champions, and what they're saying about Harper is turning every single conversation about this finals completely upside down. Here's the full story. Dylan Harper came into this league with enormous expectations. The son of Ron Harper, a five-time NBA champion who won rings alongside both Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, Dylan carried a name that meant something before he ever stepped onto an NBA court. But carrying a famous name and living up to it are two completely different things. The NBA is full of players who had every advantage and still couldn't make it. Pedigree doesn't guarantee anything in this league. What Dylan Harper is doing right now goes way beyond pedigree. It goes beyond bloodline. It goes beyond anything that can be explained by simply pointing to where he came from. Through the first rounds of these playoffs, Harper has been one of the most electric players on the floor in almost every game the Spurs have played. His ability to get to the basket is already at an elite level. His pull-up jumper is more reliable than anyone expected from a teenager. His court vision, his composure in fourth quarters, his willingness to take and make shots in the biggest moments, all of it has been on full display at the worst possible time for every team that has had to guard him. Opposing coaches have gone into games with specific game plans designed to take him out of rhythm. None of them have worked for a full 48 minutes. The records are starting to pile up. Youngest player to do this, fewest games to reach that. Rookie numbers that haven't been seen in the playoffs since, names that every serious basketball fan knows by heart. The statistical achievement is real and it is documented and it is not going away. But statistics only tell part of the story. What the players around the league are responding to goes deeper than box scores. It goes deeper than points per game or assist totals or defensive ratings. What they are responding to is something harder to quantify but impossible to miss when you watch him play. Veterans who have been in this league for 10 and 15 years are watching Harper and saying things publicly that they almost never say about rookies. Because rookies are supposed to be humbled by the playoffs. The speed is supposed to be too fast. The physicality is supposed to be too much. The mental pressure is supposed to show up somewhere, in turnovers or hesitation or moments where the inexperience cracks through. The stage is supposed to shrink players who haven't been on it before. With Harper, that crack has not appeared. Not once. Not in a close game. Not in an elimination game, not in a Game 7 on the road. He has looked the same in every single situation, and that consistency is what is genuinely alarming the rest of the league. LeBron James has been watching. He has commented. Multiple All-Stars have weighed in publicly. Former champions who understand what it takes to perform at this level in June, who have been through the physical and mental grind of a deep playoff run, are speaking up with a level of genuine respect that is almost impossible to manufacture. These are not polite compliments handed out by people who want to seem supportive. These are assessments from competitors who recognize something real when they see it. When players who have been through finals themselves start saying a 19-year-old belongs on this stage, that is not a small thing. That is the basketball world's highest form of recognition. What makes Harper's rise particularly remarkable is the context surrounding it. The San Antonio Spurs were supposed to be a developing team. Victor Wembanyama is the generational talent everyone focuses on, rightfully so, and Harper was supposed to be the complementary piece, the supporting player who would grow alongside Wemby over the next several years and eventually become something special. The plan was never to ask Dylan Harper to be a difference maker in the NBA Finals at 19 years old. Nobody scheduled that. Nobody drew it up on a whiteboard in the front office and said this is what we need from him this season. And yet that is exactly what is happening. The Knicks know what is coming. Their coaching staff has spent weeks preparing for Wembanyama. They have game planned for every Spurs action, every play call, every tendency that San Antonio has shown across 4 rounds of playoff basketball. They have studied the film. They have built their defensive schemes around limiting what Wemby can do. But Harper is the variable that is genuinely hard to prepare for because what he is doing defies the normal framework for evaluating a player this young. You cannot show your defense film from previous playoff series featuring Dylan Harper because there is no previous playoff experience to study. He is writing the blueprint in real time, and the Knicks are going to have to solve a problem that nobody has fully solved yet. The broader conversation happening around Harper right now is also about what this means for the future of the league. Because if a 19-year-old rookie can walk into the NBA Finals and perform at this level, it raises serious questions about how we evaluate young players going forward. The traditional assumption has always been that development takes time, that playoff experience is something you accumulate over years, that the finals specifically is a place where youth gets exposed and experience wins. Harper is challenging every single one of those assumptions simultaneously, and the players watching him do it are the ones who understand most clearly how difficult what he is doing actually is. There is also a personal dimension to this story that gets overlooked in the noise of statistics and highlight reels. Harper grew up around the NBA. He has been in locker rooms. He has seen what the pressure does to players. He watched his father compete at the highest level and understands in a way that most teenagers simply cannot what this environment demands. That background does not explain everything about what he is doing. Plenty of players with similar backgrounds have wilted under the same kind of scrutiny. But it does provide a piece of context that helps explain why the stage does not seem to affect him the way it affects almost everyone else his age. For the players watching from home, the ones who are commenting and reacting and going on record about what Harper is doing, the message is consistent. They see something rare. They see a player who was built for this moment even though the moment arrived years earlier than anyone expected. They see a kid who walks into the biggest arenas in basketball and looks like he has been there before. And when the best players in the world tell you that a 19-year-old rookie belongs in the conversation, you listen. Because those are the only people qualified to make that judgment, and right now they are all saying the same thing. The deeper you look at what Dylan Harper is doing in these finals, the more you realize this is only the beginning, and the players around the league know it better than anyone. Let's get into it.
Was I upset and frustrated? Not really, because as you guys know, when it's not in your control.
Reactions from NBA players about the league in 2025 are making waves, and the honesty is striking. What started as casual conversation quickly turned into pointed commentary on competition, player priorities, and the state of the game. But behind the words, there's a story about the league that few are willing to tell, and I've got every detail they aren't showing you. When the All-Star Weekend lost its pulse, for many former NBA players, the All-Star Game was once a high-water mark of mid-season competition, a moment when the league's elite came together to test themselves against the best. In 2025, the All-Star Game adopted a 4-team, single-elimination tournament format with teams playing to a target score of 40 rather than a full 4-quarter contest.
To make the game more appealing to fans who think it's not great.
Well, they can't complain about it now. I mean, analytics kind of took over the game being played.
This shift was intended to increase excitement and competitiveness, but veterans note that the result often feels different from the intensity they remember. Games now include frequent stoppages, scripted entertainment segments, and a general emphasis on visual spectacle over continuous competition. For players accustomed to defending, executing structured offense, and testing themselves in full quarters, the pacing and structure of the current event can feel fundamentally altered. Retired players see a gap between appearance and effort. While stars still show up, the meaningful stakes feel diminished. The tournament-style format, combined with side events and fan-oriented entertainment, shifts priorities toward spectacle first and basketball second. Veteran voices suggest that if the league's marquee event, the one designed to celebrate peak talent, cannot maintain credibility or intensity, it raises questions about the regular season and the playoffs. The issue is not simply nostalgia, it is about consistency and authenticity. Older players emphasize that the All-Star Game once served as a benchmark for effort and respect among peers. Players measured themselves in performance, competitiveness, and contribution, even in a mid-season showcase. Today's format, in contrast, is often structured to maximize highlights, fan engagement, and media-friendly moments, leaving some veterans concerned that the foundation of competition is being gradually replaced by entertainment value. If the premium showcase becomes primarily a spectacle, it risks eroding trust with fans who have historically relied on the All-Star Game as a measure of elite performance. The concern is systematic rather than isolated. Veterans note that an event that signals entertainment over competition may influence player attitudes, fan expectations, and league culture more broadly. By prioritizing visual thrills, the All-Star Weekend may unintentionally encourage approaches to regular season and playoff basketball, where spectacle occasionally supersedes consistent performance. For the older generation, the worry is clear. Preserving the integrity of the league's most visible events matters because these events reinforce the identity of professional basketball and its broader competitive standards. Stars, opting out of the game. They're paid to play. Veteran NBA players often describe availability as a central element of professional responsibility. Historically, stars were expected to play consistently, even through minor fatigue or schedule stress, and showing up was considered part of the implicit contract with fans and the league. In 2025, the practice of load management and targeted rest periods has become common.
Financially, like, are you stable enough to go the entire
6 months
summer without getting a
without-
check? You know? Or do you need to get money because you spend a lot of money? You need,
Yeah.
to, you know? So
Yeah.
it just depends. Like, obviously coming in, I think a lot of guys go,
While intended to protect long-term health and prevent injury, older players observe that it can sometimes shift into strategic absence. Star athletes now occasionally skip games, including nationally televised or high-profile matchups, for reasons other than immediate injury. This trend raises both perception and reliability concerns. From the veteran viewpoint, the league's promise to fans is grounded in predictability. The best players are present and engaged. If that presence is inconsistent, it can undermine confidence in the quality of the product. While health considerations are legitimate, the optics of missing games for rest or minor precaution are significant. Fans and media expect the highest level of play and engagement. Repeated absence may inadvertently signal a culture in which the league's stars are optional rather than foundational, which older voices argue could erode long-term trust in both the league and its events. Veterans also highlight the ripple effect. If audiences perceive that star appearances are intermittent, the narrative of the season shifts. It becomes less about consistent competition and more about protecting individual performance metrics. This can alter how teams approach strategy, media coverage, and fan engagement. While policies have been implemented to ensure minimum participation for high-profile games and events, older players see a broader cultural shift taking hold. They emphasize that reliability, consistency, and accountability are critical not only for fan engagement, but also for maintaining the league's identity. The underlying point is systemic. The league's value proposition rests on top talent being present and performing at a competitive level. When stars are absent or selectively present, the product is compromised. Older players are concerned that normalized absence risks creating a long-term expectation among players, teams, and fans that top talent is optional. From their perspective, preserving both competitive integrity and public perception is essential to sustaining engagement, ensuring the league remains a platform for authentic elite performance rather than episodic appearances. Entertainment outgrowing essence. The modern NBA has seen a clear evolution in playing style, presentation, and audience focus. By 2025, the game emphasizes fast pace, high scoring, three-point volume, and highlight-driven sequences designed to engage viewers both in arenas and online.
You don't realize how hard the NBA is until you really are in the NBA, like in it. Like the daily grind of everything. When you're young.
While this evolution has expanded viewership and global interest, veteran players note a tension between spectacle and fundamental competitive principles. Skills such as mid-range shooting, structured offensive sets, disciplined defense, and consistent teamwork are often secondary to showmanship and speed-focused strategies. For many former players, the concern is less about athletic progression and more about preserving the foundational character of the sport. Basketball's appeal historically relied on meaningful competition, structured strategy, and effort-based outcomes. When these elements are overshadowed by visually engaging but less strategically substantive play, older voices suggest that the league risks weakening the connection fans feel to genuine contests. Highlight reel basketball may attract casual attention, but sustained fan loyalty often depends on narratives built around disciplined team play, intense rivalries, and a reliable standard of competition. Veterans also note the long-term implications for player development. Younger athletes may be encouraged to prioritize scoring volume, entertainment value, and social visibility over defensive fundamentals, team execution, and basketball IQ. While innovation and evolution are natural, the risk arises if entertainment metrics consistently override competitive principles. The sport may gain visibility in the short term, but could lose grounding in the core elements that define basketball excellence. Additionally, credibility remains a central concern. If the league increasingly markets spectacle-first experiences, observers may question the authenticity of outcomes and competitive balance. Older players stress that while growth and adaptation are positive, they should not come at the cost of core values. Maintaining balance between entertainment and essence is vital for sustaining the sport's identity, ensuring that fans continue to see meaningful competition and that player achievements retain significance. By emphasizing spectacle over substance, the NBA risks altering both audience expectations and long-term cultural understanding of what professional basketball represents. Global growth, domestic disquiet. The NBA's global expansion in recent years has been significant. By 2025, players from Europe, Africa, and Asia have become key contributors, and the league has scheduled regular season games abroad while leveraging international streaming platforms to reach audiences worldwide.
So once the direct deposit hits, the league will be looking towards expansion. Before Game 2 of the NBA Finals, Adam Silver pulled up to the Celtics pregame show and gave some hints on which cities the league is targeting.
While this growth is generally welcomed, veteran players view it with measured concern, noting the potential tension between expansion and the league's domestic foundations. They remember eras when local rivalries, home arenas, and regional franchise identities were central to the sport's culture. For them, basketball's long-term vitality depended on strong local roots alongside global reach. Older voices argue that international growth should not come at the expense of domestic coherence. Neutral site games abroad, exhibition matches, and schedule adjustments intended to appeal to foreign markets risk diminishing the intensity of local rivalries. Additionally, broadcast strategies increasingly prioritize global streaming over domestic audience engagement. While these steps increase exposure and potential revenue, veterans worry that they may unintentionally weaken fan loyalty at home, particularly among audiences whose support has been the backbone of the league for decades. The concern also touches on narrative depth. Basketball's appeal has historically relied on stories unfolding over time, franchises building dynasties, players establishing legacies, and communities maintaining emotional ties to teams. When emphasis shifts toward novelty events and spectacle designed primarily for international visibility, the consistency of these narratives may be compromised. Fans domestically may feel less invested if their teams are treated as interchangeable elements in a global marketing strategy rather than central to sustained competition. Veteran players acknowledge the importance of expansion. They recognize that growing the game globally brings new talent, new markets, and new revenue. However, they advocate for a balanced approach. Global reach should complement, not replace, domestic intensity and loyalty. A league that prioritizes international novelty without reinforcing local narratives risks building a product that attracts broad attention but lacks durable attachment. For the older generation, sustainable growth relies on integrating both worlds, expanding globally while preserving the cultural, competitive, and emotional foundations that have historically defined the league's identity. From legacy to branding, what are players building? For veteran NBA players, the idea of success was historically clear. Championships, peer respect, consistency, and mastery of the game. Rings, accolades, and performance over years established reputations and shaped legacies. By 2025, the professional athlete's role has evolved to include not only on-court performance but also off-court branding, social influence, and commercial visibility.
I think they're too young putting their brands together. I think you need to show your excellence on the court first, and that's where you really establish yourself. I think it's the inverse effect has happened where you got a kid with a brand, and I'm like, well, wait, why do you have a brand?
Modern players are expected to excel in media presence, social platforms, signature products, and endorsements. From the perspective of the older generation, this dual role introduces a layer of complexity that was largely absent in previous eras. The concern is that branding can overshadow performance. When off-court profile dictates public perception as much as, or more than, statistical achievement or competitive contribution, the clarity of legacy may shift. Veterans note that younger players, consciously or unconsciously, may prioritize building image and visibility alongside, or even over, competitive success. While branding is not inherently negative, it carries implications for the league's identity. A player remembered primarily for media influence rather than consistent excellence risks setting a precedent where image and marketability rival or surpass the importance of sustained achievement. Veterans also point to the historical narrative of basketball. Legacy has traditionally been tied to competition, resilience, and mastery, forming a through line across decades. By emphasizing off-court branding, the league may inadvertently fragment this narrative. Younger players may focus on short-term visibility metrics rather than enduring on-court accomplishments. The older generation sees a potential consequence. When image and perception are as critical as performance, the definition of greatness becomes less anchored in verifiable achievement. The challenge for the league, they suggest, is balance. The product remains basketball, but the value system around it has evolved. Maintaining a focus on both competitive excellence and responsible brand building ensures that legacies retain weight and the sports culture remains coherent. Veterans see this as critical not only for individual players but also for the league as a whole. Sustaining respect, credibility, and long-term fan engagement depends on keeping performance at the center of the narrative while acknowledging the reality of modern media. The fury of the schedule, the quiet erosion of the product. Veteran NBA players have long spoken about the demanding nature of the league's schedule. By 2025, the regular season consists of 82 games, with compressed periods, back-to-back matchups, and extensive travel normalized. While the league has made adjustments, reducing some back-to-back sets and lessening particularly condensed stretches, older players remain concerned that the pace and expectations still challenge both performance quality and player reliability. The issue is not just physical fatigue, but the broader impact on the product itself. Older voices note that fans expect consistency and excellence. The league's promise is simple. Viewers should be able to rely on seeing the best athletes performing at their peak. However, when players arrive visibly worn, miss games for rest, or perform below standard due to accumulated fatigue, that expectation is undermined. Research has suggested that the correlation between fatigue and injury risk may be less straightforward than commonly assumed, implying that some scheduling pressures are more cultural than necessary. For veterans, this highlights a potential misalignment between rationale and practice. The concern extends beyond individual health to the perception of the league's product. Subpar performances or frequent absences may normalize reduced effort, creating a new baseline for what audiences come to expect. If nightly games are no longer reliably competitive, the premium value of watching top-level basketball diminishes. Older players argue that such trends can erode fan trust quietly over time. Unlike scandals or dramatic events, the impact of scheduling fatigue accumulates gradually, affecting engagement, attendance, and long-term loyalty. Ultimately, the message is clear. The league must balance entertainment, player health, and performance integrity. Scheduling decisions influence not only athletes' careers, but also the credibility of the product offered to fans. Veterans caution that prioritizing logistical efficiency or global reach at the expense of reliability risks eroding the foundational promise that every game delivers elite-level basketball. Maintaining that standard is central to sustaining both fan confidence and the historical reputation of the league as a showcase of consistent excellence. When fan engagement and ratings depend on one name by 2025, veteran NBA players observe a growing trend. The league's narrative increasingly centers around individual stars. Breakout rookies, social media sensations, and marquee names are now primary drivers of viewership, ticket sales, and sponsorship deals.
And then I look up and I see LeBron James, and what's going through my mind is just like, oh my God, the like greatest player of all time in basketball is sitting next to me. And I just freak out completely. I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, this is like the best moment of my life.
From a business standpoint, this is logical. One electrifying player can elevate interest, boost ratings, and expand the league's reach both domestically and internationally. However, for the older generation, this reliance introduces strategic fragility. When fan attention, media coverage, and engagement metrics hinge on a single figure, the broader ecosystem becomes vulnerable. Veterans point out that the issue is not the prominence of star players themselves, but the structural dependence on them. If a key star is injured, traded, or otherwise absent, the immediate impact on audience interest can be significant. Unlike past eras, where rivalries, franchise narratives, and layered team dynamics sustained engagement, today's interest spikes can be narrow and short-lived. When viewership is contingent on the presence of one person rather than the collective league story, the risk is that attention shifts unpredictably, leaving franchises and seasons less resilient to fluctuation. This dependence also affects the fan experience. Rather than encouraging audiences to invest in season-long storylines, the current model fosters episodic engagement. Fans are drawn to games or moments when stars play, rather than remaining consistently connected to teams, rivalries, or broader league narratives. Veterans note that this approach may yield immediate spikes in engagement but risks undermining long-term loyalty. The league's product becomes event-driven rather than narrative-driven, vulnerable to the cycles of individual careers. Older players also emphasize the cultural implications. Basketball's history has been built on collective achievement, team rivalries, and sustained narratives. When attention narrows excessively, those broader storylines risk fading and the league's depth diminishes. Veterans suggest that growth should be paired with diversification. Multiple stars, multiple teams, and layered narratives ensure engagement remains robust even as individual names rise or fall in prominence. They argue that durable success relies on a foundation broader than any single athlete. In essence, stars can shine, but the league itself must remain the enduring platform. Integrity on the line, scandal, trust, and the wider threat. Veteran NBA players have long emphasized that trust is central to the sport. By 2025, recent scandals have tested that principle in a tangible way. Federal indictments linked current and former players, coaches, and even prominent league figures to schemes involving inside information, gambling, and potentially rigged outcomes. While not all allegations have been proven, the perception alone is significant. Veterans observe that professional sports operate on a simple contract with fans, sponsors, and media. Performance must be genuine, competition must be fair, and results must be credible. When that assumption is threatened, the product itself is at risk. Older players view these scandals as more than individual wrongdoing. They see the ripple effects extending to the league's credibility, the trustworthiness of competition, and the cultural understanding of basketball's integrity. Fans may begin to question whether game outcomes are influenced by external factors, diminishing the value of attendance, viewership, and engagement. For those who came up through eras built on transparency and consistent standards, these developments are alarming. Basketball functions as a collective contract. Players, coaches, and fans each contribute to the ecosystem under the assumption of fairness. Violations weaken that contract. Veterans also stress that perception matters as much as facts. Even if only a few individuals are implicated, the signal sent is broad. Young players observing the league may recalibrate their understanding of acceptable behavior, while fans might begin to doubt the authenticity of on-court effort. This can erode confidence over time, subtly affecting engagement and loyalty. Consequently, the league's response is critical. Veteran voices advocate for proactive measures, clear disciplinary standards, transparent investigations, and consistent enforcement to protect both the integrity of competition and the perception of fairness. Ultimately, older players see integrity as foundational. Scandals are not merely episodic events, they are structural stress tests for the league. If left unresolved, trust erodes, and the sport's credibility suffers. Preserving the fairness of competition and reinforcing transparency is essential to maintaining the NBA's reputation, ensuring that basketball continues to be a product that fans, players, and communities can engage with confidently. Without this foundation, they warn, the entire enterprise becomes vulnerable to long-term reputational damage and weakened legitimacy. Before you go, remember, this conversation about the NBA in 2025 is far from over. The insights from the players are shaking assumptions about the league, its future, and the direction of the game. What they revealed, and what they left unsaid, could change how fans and analysts see the sport moving forward. If you want to catch every development, the debates, the behind-the-scenes truths, and the reactions that follow, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The next revelation could reshape everything.